good of the people, and there has been much debate. There have been bills that passed, bills that didn't pass, but at the end of the day, we passed a budget that was incredibly important to steward taxpayer dollars in a way that served Tennesseans. And then there was legislation passed that I believe the people and the men and women of the General Assembly have represented the people that elected them to do just that, and to bring forth legislation that will benefit our state. Our state's in a very strong position, and I believe this session strengthened that position. So I'm grateful for the work. Lieutenant Governor McNally, Speaker Sexton, Leader Johnson, Leader Lamberth, Chairman Faison, leadership throughout the General Assembly and all of the members. I just want to express my gratitude for them. So we will, I'll let members speak, and then we will let leadership speak, and then we'll answer questions. Lieutenant Governor?
This way.
Go right ahead, sorry.
I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you, Governor. It's a pleasure to be here and to say goodbye to y'all, at least for a while. We did some great things. Certainly the school choice bill. We passed a budget which over the years has been one that's been structurally balanced, which is so very important for our bond rating. And we did a lot in the area of infrastructure, crime prevention, bail bond reform, just a lot of things that we were able to accomplish. And it was through working with the administration, working with the House, and working with the members of the House and Senate. But thank you, and pleasure to introduce Speaker Sexton, my colleague on the other side. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. It's great to be here with y'all today, and I'm sure y'all are happy that you don't have to be here anymore either. But let me just say it's great to partner with Governor Lee and build that relationship with him and his staff in the House and the Senate. And I think it shows when you see other states, what you see is the bodies and individuals not moving in unison with one another. And I think that's what separates our state apart. When you look at us compared to other states, we all believe in the same vision. We believe in our governor. We believe in the direction that we want to go. And we're all moving in the same direction, in the same boat, rowing at the same time. And that's how we're making a difference in our state, whether it's in education, whether it's finance, whether it's criminal justice, pick a subject, healthcare, anything. That's the way we're leading. That's the way we're moving. And so it's been a pleasure to be a part of it. I look forward to seeing what next year brings as well for us. And so I would love to introduce a great leader in the Senate, Leader Jack Johnson.
Thanks, Speaker. Thank you very much, Speaker. It's a pleasure to be here. This is my 19th legislative session, and I think far and away this one has been the most effective and the most efficient in the amount of time spent, our ability to focus on issues that are of great importance to our constituents all across the state of Tennessee. When you look at the accomplishments, our press secretary was handing these out on the floor, and I'm sure a lot of people will be looking at these. And when you flip through here and you look at the magnitude and the complexity of some of the items that we took on and we addressed in this brief 3.5-month period of time, it really is, I think, a testament to the members of the General Assembly and certainly Governor Lee. It starts with the governor bringing us a budget, and then the House, the Senate leadership working with our incredible members in both chambers to be able to resolve some of these very difficult, complex problems in an efficient way that is good for the people of Tennessee. So I'm very grateful to Speaker Sexton, Lieutenant Governor McNally, as I said, Governor Lee and his team for getting us set up. We started with a special session. We got some very, very big, important things done, and then we seamlessly transitioned into a regular legislative session and continued doing the work for the people of the state of Tennessee. So I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this legislative family, and we're already going to start getting ready for next year. With that, I have the honor of working with my colleague in the House, who is the House Majority Leader, is a great friend. He and I, this is our 7th session together, working in the roles that we now have, and I think we make a great team. That's House Majority Leader William Lambert. Appreciate it.
Well, y'all, here we are again. So we stand in recess, and I wanted to just start out by saying I'm not going to give a big, long speech. I joked that I had 15 minutes prepared. It's nowhere near that. But I did want to say, just before we came in here, I handed the governor a spreadsheet that has all the bills that Jack and I filed on his behalf this year. And virtually every single one of them, again, for the 7th year passed. And one of my staff members keeps that list. Nicole does a great job of that. And we keep up with that every year. But it's unheard of, I think, for a governor to be in his 7th term and working with all of us and continue to just bring home wins for the Tennessee people. And so this year, I mean, we put $640 million new dollars into K-12 education. Every single state employee and teacher in this state is going to get a raise, and our teachers are going to get a bonus as well, as long as our school boards come through and pass a resolution to support that. From teacher raises to rural investments to continuing to make sure that that unemployment rate hovers down near 3%. I mean, it's been that way for years. We have made sure that we have good jobs, good educational opportunities for all of our children in Tennessee, and that we have safe communities. We did that again this year. But I wanted to highlight that investment in education, and then just a couple of quick things. One of the things that has been a real difficult issue to deal with has been the hemp issue. And all of us here have worked very hard this year to make sure that we have a regulated hemp industry that is not marijuana. We've not passed a recreational marijuana bill in this state, thank God. And yet there are those that try to use loopholes to try to bring that into our state. And we put that genie back in the bottle this year and made sure that folks do have hemp that they can take advantage of and can use those products, but not marijuana. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to bring that bill across the finish line, and I want to thank everybody up here on the stage for that. So there's 100 other issues that I could talk about, but from securing more funds for education to making sure that we have safe communities and great jobs out there, and then putting $1 billion into roads. I mean, it's just been a great session from top to bottom. And I agree with Jack, one of the most efficient that I've seen in my time down here. So thank you very much, and I thank Chairman Faison, my dear friend, wants to say a couple of words here. Chairman?
Good afternoon. I will echo what both leaders said. In my 15 years, this is the most efficient I've seen it. I want to just highlight one thing that I think is special about the state of Tennessee and the legislature. If you start Lake and Dyer County down to Shelby County to Washington, Johnson to Polk County, to Hamilton County, and everything in between. If you look at the budget, if you look at the bills that we passed, every area has something good that's happened for them. Our budget and the bills that we passed impact Tennesseans in a positive way. I remember when Governor Lee ran, he had a phrase that he said when he came to Cotton County. He said he wants to make sure that Tennessee is a place to live, work, grow a family, have fun, and be safe. And that's what you see in the budget that we passed this year and the laws we passed this year. I'm a political nerd, and I love to watch other states, and I will tell you this. You happen to be sitting in the very best state in all of America, and we did a good job for the people of Tennessee because they entrusted us with their money, with our votes, with their votes for us, and allowed us to do something good for the people of Tennessee. And thank you for getting the message out of the good stuff that we've done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, each one of y'all. Again, the partnership is strong, and we've done good work, and I'm grateful for what we've accomplished, and we'll be happy to answer questions from myself or anyone up here. Anyone want to start?
Do you want to start over here? Questions? Yeah, for Lambert?
Oh, that's me.
Any word from the federal government on whether or not HB 793 would have gotten support from the country?
Now, see, I thought you wanted to know about the fax machine bill where we did away with fax machines in state government, but I'll talk about 793. So we have sent a letter specifically to the Secretary of Education, and we are still awaiting that response. The fiscal impact of that bill has another fiscal impact, and the concern by fiscal review is that it could endanger $1.1 billion of federal education funding. Now, the primary purpose of that bill is to make sure that those that are here illegally actually cover the additional cost of their education. If there's any risk that there's going to be federal funds taken away from our public schools in the state of Tennessee, we want an answer on that. We want to make sure that there is zero risk. And so we've sent that letter. We're waiting for the response, and we're ready to go forward. If that response comes back that there is no risk, then we can go forward with that bill. But if it comes back that there is risk, then we can begin a back and forth with the Trump administration to eliminate that risk, because this is about getting more resources into the educational system here in Tennessee, not risking having less resources. So we're still waiting an answer.
So
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. The bill, the first bill you talked about, holding locals accountable, is statewide. It's not just pertains to Memphis or Shelby County. It attains all across the state, so it's a statewide application bill. That bill worked out the compromise with the Senate and the House the way it should be, and the three-judge panel makes that determination in the end about the funds. And so we're happy where that bill landed. I think it sends the right message that we want our locals to abide by state law, state constitution, and other things. So I'm happy where that went. The second bill, the Memphis City School Bill. Look, we stood here last year and we couldn't come to an agreement on school choice, and everybody looked at us like you're never going to get there. And we got there. And so what I would say is we'll come back next year and take a look. But I would also tell the schools in Memphis and Shelby County, this isn't a pass. They got 8 months till we come back. And I hope that they look at that and say, we need to change. And we need to make improvements, and we got to see better results. We got to see better return on our investment, the $2 billion that are being spent locally and statewide, to go to the schools. And as you heard on the floor, 1 of every 7 education dollars goes to Memphis schools. 1 of 7. That's a lot of money not to get a return on our investment. And so I hope that they will take that, and then we're going to look at the forensic audit when it comes back. But our goal in the end is we want a thriving Memphis, a thriving Shelby County. And the way to get there is through education, K through 12. School choice is important, charter schools is important, quality K through 12 is important. It all goes hand in hand. I appreciate the governor and the leadership on school choice and charter schools, as well as the Senate. But the way we get Memphis thriving and growing and economic output that they've never seen is to make sure that they can get those schools turned around, and that's what we're going to wait to see if they can do in 8 months.
What was your high point? What was your low point this session?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Randy's got new material.
I care a lot about the children in this state, and they are our future. And I have for many, many years believed that we can have a commitment to have the best public schools in America and provide parents options and choice at the same time. That was part of the special session. I'll speak to the entire effort, special and regular session. A highlight for me would be the passage of school choice. The highlight for the regular session portion of that is to pass a budget that I think is fiscally responsible. We're an unusual state. We have surplus. We have a balanced budget. We have a commitment to take Tennesseans' taxpayer dollars and spend them in a way that benefits Tennesseans. I think we did that with the budget. That was the most important part of the second part of our session for me. Gosh, the low point probably had nothing to do with session at all. I won't address the low point. Yeah.
Melissa, under your state of state address, you spent a good amount of time talking about a pledge to help Tennesseans with everyday costs related to child care, related to buying a starter home, pledge that there would be tens of thousands of new child care spots in the state, and you did want to see that revolving starter home fund in your budget that ultimately did not make it. Do you think enough was done this session that will help you meet that pledge to Tennesseans? And when can Tennesseans expect to see tens of thousands of child care spots start hitting their communities?
I think I spoke to a housing group today earlier, and I said, one of the most important things to do is to get data and then elevate the conversation that makes that data known so that we can make change. As was referenced earlier, work that we believe is important that doesn't always happen in the session that we first introduce it, whether it's the farmland bill that didn't pass last year and did this year, or school choice that didn't pass last year but did this year. It's part of the working relationship we have is to then over the summer say, look, housing and childcare are really important to Tennesseans. The members of the General Assembly know that. Our office knows that. How can we, here's introduce some ideas that partially were, some of those were partially funded, some of them worked, some of them didn't. introduce ideas and elevate that conversation. So then collectively we can say, what can we do? That's even more effective than what we did this year. I believe that those are two issues, childcare and housing, that are a part of, they're really not independent issues. They go along with workforce development. They're workforce issues. And our development of workforce is crucial to our state going forward. So I suspect you'll continue to see us and the members bring forth ideas that are going to be helpful.
I have a quick question as well from the member. The fiscal note on the immigration bill came out nearly 8 weeks ago. Why wait until last week or the last couple of weeks to ask that clarification from the Department of Education?
So we continue to amend that bill through the process, and I continue to work with the Attorney General's office, our legal staff, and fiscal review to try to amend the bill in a way that would have erased the other fiscal impact. And unfortunately, up until the very last amendment, which I filed with the committee, fiscal review felt quite confident that regardless of what amendment we put on it, they were still concerned about the federal government withholding $1.1 billion. So at some juncture, I just ran out of time and had to send a direct question to the federal government with the most recent version, what I consider to be the final version that we have filed with the committee in the House. And we did that in conjunction with Senator Watson in the Senate, who has obviously already passed that on the Senate floor. And I know he was concerned about that as well, and we worked through that. And so there is a final version of it, but until we got to that point where we really felt like, hey, look, we have the strongest legal version available, to then send that to the federal government and say, look, we want a definitive answer back. Will this endanger $1.1 billion or more of federal funding or not? Under the Trump administration, I anticipate that the answer is going to be that it will not endanger any funds. But it's just too big a risk to take at this juncture. Since we are in the first year of a 2-year legislative session, we have time to be able to still pass that bill. My hope had been, and I know Senator Watson's hope had been as well, that we'd be able to get that answer back really quickly in a very tight timetable here at the end and still pass the bill in the Senate and the House. It just didn't happen during this time frame, but now we have more time to wait for a response. And if that response comes back a maybe or a partial, we can go back and forth with the federal government to say, look, well, what would this bill need to look like so it doesn't endanger any federal funding whatsoever? This has always been about getting more funds into the public education system, not less.
Governor, a bill will soon be on your desk that does not legalize or ban anything. It simply codifies protections for women to have access to birth control and IVF. I know that your office has been getting a lot of calls about that bill. Do you feel that women should continue to have access to those things?
Well, I haven't read the bill because I haven't made it to my desk yet, and so I want to say that until I read it, I can't definitively comment on it. But the basis of my understanding of what it is, I plan to sign that bill.
I also had a question for you, Governor. We had several discussions about the grocery tax this year. There's an effort to consider repealing the grocery tax, actually cut it. I asked a couple times about the holiday, as I've read in the past. Obviously, there was not agreement in the budget this year. Can you point to any specific relief that you're taking us?
Well, I'm going to answer that question. Then I'm going to text y'all some questions for Jack because he hasn't got any, so he needs something. No, look, I mean, I'm obviously passionate about this subject. We've cut over $5 billion in taxes over the last decade through the leadership of these folks up here, and especially when Governor Lee came on as governor. We've cut over $5 billion in taxes for Tennesseans. We are one of the lowest tax states in the nation. And so in looking at trying to attack and reduce the grocery tax, we have to be confident that we have a robust economy coming forward where there's going to be revenues coming into the state in sales tax dollars from Tennesseans to be able to cut that tax. We've cut about 1.25% previously, and we can cut it again. We even looked at cutting particular items. The problem is the Biden economy stank. I mean, it's horrible. We are still in the hangover from the Biden economy, and President Trump's doing everything he can to turn that around, but we're still estimating a very low return in this coming budget as far as the growth. And if you just looked at the numbers that came out today, we still are underwater in this year's budget. So in the current 25 budget, it's still under as far as what they had anticipated would come in. That's going to have to right size before we can look at additional tax cuts. But I fully support that bill, and I hope that we will absolutely be able to pass a version of that down the road. We've just got to have the economy actually turn around and have President Trump's economy kick into gear. And when that really ramps up, I think we can look at some additional tax cuts.
Okay, next.
I know obviously a lot of highlights of legislative discussion. As all you gentlemen know, right now, there's also a very important federal trial going on just downtown. A lot of rumors have circulated surrounding this trial and the investigation. One of the biggest rumors we hear is we want to know if any of you gentlemen were asked to wear a wire for this federal investigation and trial.
I can't comment on that. I don't know anything about the trial itself.
Well, I mean, you're going to get my same response. You can try. But, you know, I mean, I think what you talked about, you can go look at the court documents. You're talking about people who did that. My understanding is I'm a factual witness. I think you all reported that. And so I don't think there's any surprise there. No one's going to answer whether or not they wore a wire. I appreciate the question, but you can ask the federal authorities when the trial's over. That's just kind of where it's going to be at.
The Lieutenant Governor did a long time ago.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, he's talked about that. I mean, yeah.
And you can't talk about it while you're wearing it.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Do you feel like this trial has further reputation of public party right needs?
That's for the public to decide. Yeah.
Well, I'll take that question. I don't mind. So I stand here as the House Majority Leader for the Republican caucus, and what we did is when the Speaker and others identified that there was a problem, and the same thing we do in any potential wrongdoing, whether it's one of our members or one of the Democratic caucus, we're going to hold people accountable and insist that if they are doing something that is criminal or even unethical, we're going to make sure that they stand accountable for those actions every single time. That's what Republicans have always stood for. We stand for personal responsibility, and you're going to see that played out in the courtroom over the next couple of weeks.
All right, next one.
I have a question for the governor. I want to know whether or not you support the audit, given that this shows the kind of schools in place to be the 20th school board back in the past.
Well, I do think that we should have an audit. I think it's important that we understand exactly the finances. There wasn't an agreement on a bill today, so I can't comment on something that didn't come into play. But what I will say is, I said earlier I care a lot about the kids in this state. I care equally about the children of Shelby County, about their opportunity, about the outcomes for that school district would have not been what they should be. We owe those kids and those families, we owe them more. And we owe them more accountability. We owe them more understanding. We owe those parents outcomes that we know their kids can accomplish and achieve. So something needs to be done. Exactly what that something is, it starts with an audit so that we can more fully understand what's happening there. And then, as the Speaker said, there'll be more steps taken forward, but we just want the local community there to take ownership of the challenges that they have had over the last few years, because the children of Memphis deserve that.
Jonathan?
Governor, I have an unrelated question. The Board of Parole today recommended that you pardon the country musician Jelly Roll. I wanted to see if you have any early thoughts on that. I know you have a lot of reading to do on it, and that's what
Yeah, so, there's a process for clemency in this state, and I've been very, it's been really important to me. We've been through that process now for several years, and I've granted clemency on a regular basis and will continue to do that throughout the state. The reporting of Jelly Roll, that's encouraging for his situation, but there are steps yet to happen in that case. And you got to remember, there are dozens of cases like that one that will come before the board. Then the board will go through the process of preparing the reports for that are delivered to our legal team, and they go through the process of each one of those cases. Every case, equally important, really important. It's a thorough process. We have done that process every year, and that's exactly how it'll be done this year.
Nicole?
Probably on the budget, mainly the first time the state is taking on debt under your administration, I believe. What, I guess, would you like to say about that generally and then process?
I'm a former business person and have understood for a long time that sometimes the best way to be a good steward of a budget includes minimal debt. When we can issue a bond and build a building, a capital improvement project, complete that project, and then pay down that debt, we often, if we're smart about that, we save taxpayers dollars. We build that building more efficiently and with a lower cost than had we waited until we had the cash reserves to do it. We are one of the lowest debt per capita states in America. We have triple A bond ratings with all of the leading institutions. That will not change with this level of bonding that would be issued. It is a significant amount of money, but it is a significantly small level of debt for a state that has a budget and a state that is the size of ours. So what I really think is that this is smart fiscal management from a state budget. It's the most important job I have is to present to the legislature a budget that stewards Tennesseans' taxpayer dollars wisely, and I believe the issuance of debt to build capital projects particularly in a time when we have high inflation and high costs of capital building, it's a smart thing to do.
I think there one more back here.
If you don't mind, I just have one more follow-up. Following that, why not use the debt for roads? A lot of people are saying that, you guys are putting $1 million in. There is much more needs to be done for roads to get them up to par.
Well,
so why not extend?
I think we have to be very careful with how we issue debt in this state. We want to remain one of the lowest debt states in America. We will maintain that level if we issue the $1 billion for capital projects. So we have to be very careful with how much debt. We don't want to issue too much debt. We don't want to issue it for reasons that are not as efficient as capital projects. We think this is the best use of that debt without extending it. We did, in fact, put $1 billion of non-recurring dollars into the budget for transportation. We have a very strong commitment, as you know, in the last couple of years, $3 billion along with the Transportation Modernization Act. So we recognize that we have an obligation and responsibility to build good roads for our people, and we're going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. When you borrow money and you're doing it for capital projects, that property appreciates in value, right? That makes good sense if you're going to borrow money on an asset that's going to appreciate. No matter how good the roads are, and I appreciate Commissioner Lee, the roads do not appreciate value, they depreciate. So if you're wanting to borrow money for a depreciation asset, that does not make sense because we're not getting any value of it. And then the amount of money we have to pay in interest on that asset doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of discussion on the House floor where the Democrats stood up and said they want to do $45 billion, I believe,
made up a number.
of road debt. And they want to borrow $45 billion. That's a huge mistake. That will be an albatross around the state if that's what will happen. It does not make sense. So you got to look at the type of assets you're trying to borrow against as well as you're making that determination.
We'll take one more here and then I think we have one in the back to finish.
Yeah, so the legislature passed several DEI-related bills this session, and I'm just kind of curious why you thought this was the year to get some of this through, and are you looking to expand other DEI-related bills in the future?
Well, I think the Supreme Court of the United States ruled and indicated that many of the so-called DEI programs were actually discriminatory and were not legal in the country. That's what began the process of looking at institutions in the private sector and government entities to follow the spirit of what the Supreme Court has stated going forward. And we don't want to discriminate against anyone. And so that's the heart and the spirit behind the bills that were passed. And I haven't seen all of those that were passed today. If others want to speak to that, but I think it goes to the heart of just not being discriminatory, and that's the heart behind them.
Okay, we'll take the last couple in the back here.
Two quick questions.
question for the governor in regards to some two bills that we passed. Bill 1115, which allows the state of corrections to remove 10% of the prison population if the death rate in that prison is double the state average. Do you plan on signing that bill, or do you have any comments?
Well, I haven't seen the text of that bill or know the details of it. So, as I would say to a lot of pieces of legislation, many things were passed in the last few days. Dozens of bills come to my desk over the next period of time, and I'll evaluate each one of them as they come. So I can't speak to bills that haven't come to my desk yet.
Another bill that would hold charitable organizations liable for crimes committed by illegal immigrants. You plan on signing that?
Again, I haven't read the language, so I can't speak to it.
All right, next one.
Senator Johnson, you're on the record stating that school voucher bills would never come to Williamson County. But here we are, school choice passed, it's across the state now. Why should your constituents in the state of Tennessee trust your work?
Well, first of all, I don't recall ever saying that. There was a conversation in 2019 when we were passing the ESA bill that was specific to, originally proposed for Davidson, Shelby, Hamilton, and Knox counties. It was later amended to only be applicable in Davidson and Shelby counties. Look, I've long been a supporter of school choice. I've long been a supporter of universal school choice. And families all across the state are going to benefit from the universal school choice plan that we passed. And here's something else that was different from that conversation that took place in 2019, and that's COVID. And that's when we saw schools making kindergartners wear a mask, when there's no scientific evidence to show that that did any good at all for kindergartners. We saw schools shutting down, making kids live at home. So I do not accept the premise of the question that I said school choice would never come to Williamson County. But even if I had made that comment, again, the dynamics have changed. And that changed for a lot of people across the state of Tennessee when we saw how certain districts at the local level were reacting to the COVID pandemic. So I'm glad we passed the Universal School Choice Plan. I was proud to sponsor it, and it's going to benefit tens of thousands of Tennesseans.
All right, Drew, you got a question? It's getting late. Drew, you got a question?
Just two quick ones. House lawmakers were limited to sponsoring 12 bills this session. Do you think that this made the process more efficient?
Oh, yeah, next year's 10, so it'll be even more efficient, yep.
All right, one more to
And
wrap
just a
us
follow-up
up.
to that, do you believe that the political parties were more divided, less divided this session, and why?
I don't know if you're talking about being divided or not. I mean, I think it looked pretty smooth on the House side. I'll let the Senate speak, but y'all were here. Y'all have seen it in the past. It looked like it worked pretty well this year.
Okay,
One more. Last question from me. I'm going back to Memphis. We talked about the school state takeover bill. It's been a very good story in Memphis. Going back, this basically split the entire community. What do you want to say to Memphians as they look at it and see that it's on hold until next year?
Well, what's not on hold is the commitment to the families of Shelby County, because the session may be adjourned for today, but the work doesn't stop. The work with local officials, the work with the school board, the work with elected officials in that community, and the work with the General Assembly and the governor's office to make sure that we work together. It doesn't happen only in session. It happens all year long. There's a commitment to those children. There's a commitment to that city. Look, from the day I came into office, I said if Tennessee is going to thrive, then Memphis and Shelby County have to thrive. And there are so many positive things that have happened economically, the reductions in crime and the efforts that the General Assembly has made to make Memphis a safer city. We have to move forward with the education of those children. We have made steps. We'll continue to work all summer to advance even more steps. My message to them is we care enough to never stop pushing to make sure that the children of Shelby County have access to greater opportunity and greater educational outcomes.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Very good.
The good Lord got it done with 10 commandments.
What did you say?
The good Lord got it done with 10 commandments. We're getting done with 10 bills a year. We're going to shoot 10 bills next year.